Streaming live from Enter Manhattan, it's your hosts Nas and Aaron bringing you the sunny side up of stories and cases even though we're dead inside. Today we're going to talk about the big oops and opinions on the case of the state versus Adnan Syed, who also paid the ultimate price for entertainment in a crime of lies, betrayal, greed, backdealings, and the ultimate crime, love. This is Sunnyside Podcast, the Adnan Syed case.
You are calling Uriel Bravo, an inmate at the Rikers Island Correctional Facility. Please wait as I transfer your call.
This was mishandled like in such a bad way that there's no real way to determine whether Adnan Syed was guilty or not.
We don't want him to be guilty, so that's why, we think that way instead of the way that the court thought. On a more personal level, you are worried about a certain reputation you have, and there are people, believe it or not, who are trying to ruin your reputation.
Okay, before we begin, I guess we should start by recapping what happened. In 1999, Hae-Min Lee was a senior at Woodlawn High School, just outside of Baltimore, Maryland. She was an honor student, played field hockey and lacrosse, managed a wrestling team, and had a part-time job. She was outgoing, independent, and made friends easily across various social groups at WHS, Woodlawn High School. She was in love with her new boyfriend. But on January 13, 1999, Hae-Min Lee disappeared. On February 9th, her body was found in nearby Lincoln Park. She had been strangled to death and buried in a shallow grave. Her classmate and recent ex-boyfriend, Adnan Syed, was arrested and charged with murder. About a year later, he was convicted and sentenced to a life in prison plus 30 years. This story existed only in the private sphere of those involved until 2014, when it became the subject of a podcast serial. Serial was a runaway success, with millions of downloads, and this story became internationally famous. It is understandable that anyone who listened to 12 episodes of Serial might believe this is a story of wrongful conviction. We do. Adnan Syed was given a platform to portray himself as too normal to kill. However, there are many of us ordinary people from diverse walks of life who heard something different. We heard an evasive and manipulative Syed. We heard a journalist who was emotionally attached to him. We know that a victim, Hae-Min Lee, was underrepresented. So was the state's witness, Jay Wilds. There is a lot of information about this case, far beyond what is portrayed in Serial. That's why today we're going to be going through multiple interviews with constituents to get down to what people believe. Is the truth? Is the lie? Or both? First stop on our road trip is Sydney, who's a part-time artist, part-time food fanatic, but all-around smart and opinionated person with a bit of a dilemma. All right, hey Sydney. So you know about the Adnan case, obviously, since we're all in the same English class. What is your thoughts on the whole Adnan case?
As for his guilty or innocent, I don't know. Because there's just, so I go back and forth a lot, and what I think is, like, if Jay is actually telling the truth, right, because he knows about the car and stuff, like, and if he's telling the truth about that, and he's like, why would he lie about anything else?
Mm-hmm.
But then I also have, like, this thing, like, okay, well, anyone could just come up with a story, or that's what Adnan's maybe doing too, like, he's just playing all of us. So, I really don't know, because, like, a lot of this stuff you can just do based off what you think. It's a lot of bias. Like, it's, like, very, because I'd rather judge it based off hard evidence, which we don't have that much of, besides, like, the call logs, which apparently are, like, I don't know, they said there's something different about I don't know. Mr. McKay was telling me how they found some new things about the call logs.
I think it was like they were unreliable because it was from 99, so the ping towers weren't as accurate or something like that.
Yeah, like stuff like that. Like, I just, and then Jay, like, even though he has a lot of inconsistencies, I always thought, like, okay, well, a lot of like, if you're gonna win, like, a lot of course you're gonna, like, not remember stuff, or you're gonna, like, switch your details around. Like, maybe he was nervous or something, just like missed something, but I don't know. I never, at the beginning of this case, I had a very strong stance, like, oh, Jay is totally guilty, he's lying, and Adnan's totally innocent. Like, how did they convict him, like, guilty? But then, like, as you listen to the podcast, you kind of see how it all played out. And I always, like, what I said today in our Socratic seminar was that it's, like, how the evidence is presented. Like, obviously, in the court trial, it's presented in a way that makes Adnan look super duper bad. So, he got convicted. Then, as for us, when we're listening to this podcast, Sarah makes him look like this, super amazing kid who you'd think, like, why would he be convicted? Or, like, we're thinking, we don't want him to be guilty. And so that's why, we think that way instead of the way that the court thought, and that Jay was totally innocent. This case is just, it's too all over the place. Like they said in the thing, it's a complete mess. There's just too many details. I was even talking to my mom about this, and I only told her, like, little details. She hasn't listened to the podcast, but I was telling her about this podcast, and she was like, what the hell? Like, who, like, the whole thing with Mr. S, like, these different people coming, like how Sarah introduces, like, this, like, new little detail every, like, episode or whatever. Like, there was, like, this one episode where Chris comes in and says that, that the pop trunk where, like, the opening of the trunk where Jay was shown his body was at a pool place, right? Or how Jen was like, oh, it couldn't have been at the Best Buy. Or then there's this other girl, like Laura, who says that her neighbor was shown a dead body, and then she goes, oh, I think his name was Adnan. Like, there's just, like, all these random things that make this case look just, like, so complicated, and you're like, okay, whatever they're telling us is probably not what happened.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of this is just... like, banter. Like, they just add all these details because it keeps us away from all the holes in the state theory, and, like, just the overall confusion in this whole case. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't get, like, but then, see, and then, like, all those details were never used in the trial, so it's like, and then that also, like, makes me doubt, like, how, like, the whole Laura thing, like, where she was like, oh, I think it was Admiral, like the body, the neighbor boy body thing.
Yeah.
Like, the state didn't even use that. I mean, it's probably not even that helpful.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, still, and then, like, there's a whole thing about Christina, or, like, she didn't use Asia, she didn't affect the state's timeline, blah, blah, blah. It's just, I don't know who to blame.
Yeah. I feel like that's a reoccurring theory. Some of the other people I've asked, they just don't know, because this whole thing is just one big mess and nobody knows where to point at. Finger pointing. That's what this case mostly is. Nobody knows who to blame. Nobody knows who they should blame. Nobody knows if someone's blaming them. This is all confusing. As Sydney has said, this whole case is one big mess. It's not organized as a way that we would like to hope that we can comprehend. Give you an example, a TV show, a cop TV show. Usually there's the murder, the investigation. Once a suspect is in custody, they go through trial. You have the defense, you have the prosecution, and then it ends up in the final verdict, whether the suspect is guilty or not. Either way, everything goes happily ever after until the next episode. We don't get that luxury, though. We don't have closure. We don't know if he's innocent. We don't know if he's guilty. We don't know anything. I needed to see what other people also thought. So I called up a connection.
I transfer your call.
Alright, what's up, Uriel? So, what are your thoughts on the Adnan Syed case? His innocence or his guilt, and about the whole trial in general?
So honestly, this case was mishandled like in such a bad way that there's no real way that we can determine whether Adnan Syed was guilty or not. Like the reliance on one witness, I don't feel that was like the best move on Detective Ritz's part, and I feel that if they would have done a little bit more background info on these two, males, everything would have gone a lot smoother. Yeah, so we can't quite determine whether Adnan Syed would have done it. Jay's story has many inconsistencies, but yet again, we look at the parts that do match, and it looks like Adnan was there, or Adnan did something. You could say the same thing about Jay as well. So many things match up that we are left dumbfounded whether to believe one side or the other.
So, if you were in the courthouse, and let's say you were a close friend of Adnan, what would your bias be? Would you, even if there was some sort of tangible evidence that put Adnan at the scene, that holy shit, he's definitely a murderer, but you've been so close to Adnan or his family, would you be biased? Would you completely ignore it or something like that?
I think my reaction would be the reaction that many of his friends and community friends, the reaction that the community had. No way he was the type of person to commit such a crime. Knowing him for the type of person that he was, according to the rest, he was way too nice. He didn't fight. He was the golden child. For him to plan something like this, and I would be I don't know. It's a shocking moment, honestly.
Yeah, a lot of the people I've interviewed have said that a lot. The same phrase, I don't know, I'm not sure. Why do you feel like this case gets that reaction so much? Why is that the key word? I don't know, or I can't be sure.
Well, I think so many people use the phrase I don't know, because in reality, the case is wide open. No one really knows what's going on at this point. So many things are happening, and so many different people telling different parts of the story. We don't know who to believe, because we're not sure who is actually telling the truth. What if Jay is telling the truth? What if Adnan and Summer and all of Hayes' alibis, what if they're telling the truth? We're not sure of who actually did this. We're not sure what actually happened. And I don't think we ever will be sure what actually happened.
Alright, thanks.
This call was monitored and recorded for facility security purposes. Any malicious or illegal activities will be reported to the warden and initiate lockdown protocols. Thank you for using Rikers Island track phone services.
Now let's hear Jake's side of the story, so we called in someone who can relate. This is Kiana, classmate and close friend of Nas.
Alright, hey Kiana. So what are your overall thoughts on the Adnan Syed case? His innocence or his guilt? And about the trial, too.
I think Adnan is 100% innocent on the murder, but I do think that he was defensive because he knows a little bit too much about his death. But there's no actual legitimate prosecuting evidence that could be used against him because all the evidence that was given was deemed invalid or incredible.
What about the trial?
I don't think the trial was handled properly. The conviction lasted 2 hours. The judge was biased and tried to come up with prejudices against the jurors. So I don't think Adnan really had a fair trial to begin with.
So, like, you're the first person I've interviewed today who has had 100% confidence in Adnan that he's innocent in this case. Most people have said, I don't know, I'm not sure, or there isn't enough evidence. What makes you so sure?
I'm sure because I don't think there's any evidence that could actually be used against him that was used during the trial. I mean, the only source of evidence that we had came from Jay, whose story changed up throughout the entirety of the trial. So I don't think we could use any of his points in his story just for the mere fact that he's not a credible.
So, Kiana, you are obviously African American. Yeah. And Baltimore has a strong African American community, and Jay himself is African American as well. We hear from the podcast that many of the black jury during jury selection felt that they could connect to Jay, that Jay was credible. He was a good person, that he just got caught up in something. Why do you think they would feel such a way? Or you yourself, if you were in the jury or in Baltimore and you're hearing about this case and you see this Jay character, how would you feel about Jay? Like his character, his testimony?
Honestly, I think it goes all the way back to this black empowerment and just sticking together as one person and as this one community. And seeing someone that's like my same skin color, I would relate to them more than someone that's not of my skin color or my race or my ethnicity. And I would feel more comfortable believing them just because, we all have to stick together, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Just like back in slavery, where we just all have to be together and support each other. I think the root comes from there. And I think now that African Americans just have such a bad reputation, apparently, in America, if you see an African American male specifically in trial trying to do good, you're going to believe them, because being a snitch, so to say, as a black person is a really bad thing. So, of course, I feel like they would believe him because it's a lot on Jay to openly tell everything about this murder case.
Sticking together, racial bias. It's obvious the jurors had some towards Jay Adnan's trial. Now let's ask for a more professional opinion. Mahima's a senior who has interests of studying law. Seems like the perfect candidate.
Alright, hi. So you are aware of the Adnan Syed case?
Yes, I am.
So what are your thoughts on the case and Adnan's guilt or innocence in general?
Well, when I studied the case last year in Mr. McKay's class, I couldn't help but feeling like it was like there's just something very off. Like the evidence was presented to class, and we went into deep analysis of all of it. But I just felt like there was something missing. Like I honestly felt like there was something that Serial in the podcast that it wasn't mentioning or I wasn't going into.
Yeah.
The question on Adnan's guilt or innocence, I personally believe he's innocent, but I don't know, because I feel a certain level of connection to Adnan because of him being Muslim and a teenager, living that whole double life of trying to be an ideal Muslim child and a typical American teenager. I can feel the struggle and relate to it. And so maybe it's just the fact that I know that anyone could have gotten into that situation, and when you get into a situation like that, and, being Muslim or, having lived a life where, you have been doing things that you weren't supposed to, even though that doesn't really make you a bad person, it's just you've done some things that you could have regretted, like how he
like, you know, how they used against him that he stole money from the mosque, supposedly. You know, when you find yourself in a situation like that, there's not a lot of people who are trying to help you get out of it. So,
especially since both me and you are both Bengali, Muslim majority country, and our culture doesn't really we're all about, oh, we're here, we're a community, we're here for each other, but when it gets deep into it, most people ostracize you just for looking at them the wrong way. Our culture,
I feel like, you know, if you really need to be a part of the brown community to see it in its, like, entirety. Like, the Muslim community in America, we do, in some cases, band together and have each other's backs, but on a more personal level, you are worried about a certain reputation you have, and there are people, believe it or not, who are trying to ruin your reputation, whether it's because of the fact they don't like your family or because of the fact they just want to make themselves look better. It's all different motives, but yeah, you do have people in the community who are not trying to help you or, like, you know, not even, like, sympathizing with you when you get yourself in a situation like that.
So earlier on when we first started, you said that phrase, I don't know, and that seems to be a common theme from the people I've interviewed, and I've asked them, like, why they think that's something people say a lot about this case. What's your opinion? Why do you think people they keep saying that phrase, I don't know, or I'm not sure, when referring to this case?
I feel like because they have, see, with me, this is the case that motivated me to want to go to law school and become a lawyer. And the reason why I'm saying I don't know now is because a lot of people, they don't have enough knowledge about the legal system or the justice system in general in the U.S. to really feel like they have an opinion on the case or have a good one, you know? Like, people may feel like they're too undereducated about the ins and outs of the justice system, or maybe they just don't feel like they know all the technicalities to have a proper opinion about everything. So that's the reason why I will say I don't know to some of these questions, or just when someone asks me my opinion, because it's just that when you state an opinion, you really do need to have good evidence and, like, to back it up with. So when you state something and you don't really have a proper argument prepared, saying I don't know, or, like, I'm not sure, or that just my opinion kind of justifies it for now until you can back it up with evidence.
So going off from that, you talk about wanting to go to law school and wanting to pursue this type of career. If you were on this case, let's say you were on the defense for, we're going to start with defense, you were on the defense for Adnan, how would you handle this?
Well, what do you mean by how would I handle it? How would I go about?
How would you go about proving Adnan's innocence, or like the?
Sorry, you cut off.
I'm sorry. About how you would go through the case. Like, as we know, Cristina Gutierrez was the defense attorney for Adnan, and we also see the type of job she did and how poorly it went, be it purposefully or not. If you were Cristina Gutierrez, if you were Adnan's attorney, how would you go about proving Adnan's innocence?
Well, let's start with the fact that the only real physical piece of evidence they had in this case was a paw print on the back of a MacBook in Hae Min Lee's car, and the fact that one of the pages were ripped out was of Lincoln Park. Now, that page showed way more than Lincoln Park. It actually showed their whole neighborhood, containing, like, a lot of things that, like, a lot of places where they regularly met up, like the mall and, like, other places around the neighborhood. So, the fact that that page was ripped out, it really can't explain the fact that they were going straight to Lincoln Park. And also,
the whole idea of the paw print being on the back of the book, Adnan, paw prints can't be dated back to a certain time or place, so that he could have just touched a book and put it in the back of her car, or like, he could have just touched the book once and then boom, his paw print is on the, like, his palm print, my bad, not paw, his hand print, like the print of his palm is on the book, like, there forever. And also multiple other people's handprints are on that book, and 27 in total, I think, and none of them can be dated or traced back to any suspects. So that can be debunked. I feel like going about a case is that finding out all the evidence they have against your client or the person who's being accused, and trying to debunk all the evidence. Trying to figure out how you can explain it in a way where, basically it makes it like not being able to be used, because it's just like getting rid of how concrete it is, because that piece of evidence, the handprint on the book, is not concrete at all, because it could be explained and it can't be really traced back to a certain time or place. And then, the whole idea of cell phone towers and like call records being used against Adnan is the fact that, I think you really need to have, I think I can understand that, because as a teenager, being around the same age as Adnan when he was convicted, as a teenager, I can understand that if you have a small circle of friends or a squad, you will be calling the same people on a regular basis, or you will be calling certain people multiple times a day. And the cell phone tower is like, if you go to the same places every day, especially if you live in a small neighborhood like Adnan did, and you're always going to the same places, you're gonna ring some cell phone towers that are near places that are, people will try to put you there, but you're really not there, you're somewhere else. And just the idea of how those things can be debunked, it's not really concrete, because they can all have a rational explanation.
Yeah. Well, thank you. So, Aaron, we've reached the end of the podcast series. We've seen different witnesses, different stories, different testimonies.
Rumors, too.
Yeah. Now it's time for the final verdict. What's your take on the innocence or guilt of Adnan Syed?
Well, my opinion is that Adnan Syed is innocent, because from what we heard during the podcast, that there's, I think, not enough evidence to prove that he's guilty, and as this law goes, you're innocent until proven guilty. So from the significant lack of evidence that we've seen throughout the show, I think that Adnan Syed should be considered innocent.
Mm-hmm. I'm gonna have to agree with you on that one, because, as you said, from what we've gathered, what Sarah Koenig gathered,
we didn't do shit.
Yeah, we did nothing. It looks like there's literally almost nothing tangible against Adnan, because most of the state's case is mostly circumstantial. It's their physical case, but their strong point is obviously Jay's story and the whole shady dealings going on in the back with his testimony. And I just feel like it's a mockery of the American justice system. It's supposed to be, as you said, innocent until proven guilty, and I believe that Adnan has not been proven guilty, because there's nothing against him. Everything is just twisted lies.
It's all superficial.
Yeah, lies, rumors, as you said before.
Yeah, there's no physical, tangible evidence, as you said. Mm-hmm. It's all based off Jay's story, and that already has enough holes in it.
Yeah. The biggest hole, I feel, is just, in my opinion, when he said there was a phone booth, and he's seen and heard Adnan call him from a Best Buy phone booth, yet there has been no record of a phone booth from the establishment that is still around today. It still has no payphone, and no history of a payphone before its existence.
Yeah, like Best Buy was built in '97, and all the building plans did not have a payphone in it. Sarah, who used to regularly shoplift from said Best Buy, went there a lot. Said there was no payphone there, and the only phones were inside the store for employees to use.
Yeah, and if Adnan wanted to call from inside, then obviously Jay wouldn't know that he's wearing a red glove as soon as he pulled up there, because Adnan's inside. Yeah, it's just I hate the fact that there's nothing against Adnan, yet he's still in prison. Like, how do you allow a man who believes so hard, even almost 20 years later, that he did nothing wrong? And you see all this evidence gathered by people years later that would obviously make sense for you to review and to put up a second trial because of the shoddy work done in 99. It's just, I don't know what to think. What do you have to say?
Well, yeah, I would agree with you that it's really a mockery of the justice system. The detectives really did a shoddy work on Adnan's case, and he should have a retrial. I would say, as I said, he's innocent because not enough evidence proven guilty. I don't know if he's innocent or guilty for that fact, as it's possible for someone to believe a lie for so long that it becomes a reality to them.
Yeah.
It is possible that Adnan did it, but he believed so hard that he didn't do it. It became truth for him, and same for Jay, that he believed that Adnan did it for so long, even though he might have not, that it becomes a reality for him that in his head Adnan did it.
Yeah.
That's a possibility.
Yeah. Definitely going on that one. None of us think that Adnan is 100% innocent. We also don't believe he's guilty. It's just, unless we're in Minority Report and somehow see what happened, we really don't know what happened to Hay. Her fate has not been sealed. All we know is that she was strangled, manually strangled, and
that's it. We don't know, and she was buried in Lincoln Park. We don't know who did it, where it happened, when it happened, all of those gaps. For all we know, may have not even happened on January 13th in 99.
Yeah.
This case is still a mystery. Whether Adnan is guilty or innocent, is Jay actually involved? We will never know what really happened on that fateful day in 99. So, you've all listened to this podcast with us. What do you think happened?
Sunnyside Podcast is streamed live from Manhattan Lutheran Science High School under the direction of Matthew McKay of the English Department. Edited and produced by Aaron Gracer and Nazha. Special thanks to Mr. Gallardo for allowing us to use his room, and for Sarah Koenig and her serial podcast on the Adnan case of 2014 for inspiring us on this production, and most importantly for viewers like you. Thank you.